Hi and welcome to Stuttering Demystified. I am your host, Lori Melnitsky, a speech-language pathologist, a stuttering specialist, and someone who happens to stutter also. In this episode, I want to talk to you about a really important topic in stuttering and in stuttering therapy, breathing. And breathing, I have to be honest, is overused and definitely at times mismanaged in stuttering therapy. And I really don't mean that in a disrespectful manner, but I'm talking to you as someone who stutters and works with about 30 people who stutter each week. For some reason, it is believed that people who stutter have trouble breathing. There's no evidence that people who stutter have trouble breathing. It is known as the fears and the anxiety increases with stuttering. Our breathing can become erratic. As I'm talking to you right now, I don't have any problems breathing. So that proves to me that I know how to breathe. I'm pausing more. I'm allowing myself to express myself and phrase. I am probably using some easy onsets. So I'm going to give you an example. Every once in a while, still to this day, if somebody asks me where I live, or sometimes if they ask me what I do for a living, I freeze because the past negative experiences of not being able to say where I live, my name, my profession, those fears creep in. So what happens? I take a really deep breath of the panic, and I pack in air, and there's no way that I can get out what I want to say. The only way to get it out is to release the air. If someone at that moment says stop and slow down, then the fear and the shame even increases more. But again, that's not a function of a respiratory dysfunction. It's a function of the emotions and the fears surrounding stuttering. It's important to recognize this. Still, I hear young children all the time, and even older people are constantly telling people who stutter to stop and slow down. Many times I get calls from speech-language pathologists, and they're telling people to stop and slow down. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner, because I think the perception is when you see somebody blocking and holding air and their larynx is really tight, you're going to tell them to stop and slow down. The same thing happens if you interrupt someone who stutters, because then they immediately start to speed up, take these crazy breaths, and they can start stuttering more. Breathing is really a natural act. If we fool around with breathing, we could increase awareness, increase stuttering, increase fear, and increase shame. Additionally, it's adding an additional step to a process that's a spontaneous act. Breathing is speaking is a spontaneous act. It's really important to understand this because, as we know, stuttering can significantly affect someone's life as they get older, especially, and the fears start creeping in. The fears about being called on in class, the fears about making a presentation, the fears about what if I'm found out, what if people know that I stutter. And then all of a sudden, people start to think, oh, do they have social anxiety? And I hear this all the time. So I wanted to clear that up because I think breathing is definitely overly addressed in stuttering therapy. It makes it more complicated. It can increase fear. It confuses parents. It confuses educators. It gives the perception that the way the person is talking is just plain wrong. So my best advice is to really understand that this is not a disorder of breathing. There are many fears and emotions that come into play with stuttering. Many people I speak to, and it was the same when I was young, cannot say their name. And they walk around almost praying that no one's going to ask them their name. And what if somebody asks them their name? So by the time somebody asks them their name, the breathing becomes so unregulated. But it's important to realize it is not the listener's job to tell people to stop, slow down, take a breath. If you tell anyone to take a breath, think about it right now. If somebody told you to stop and take a breath, you're immediately going to take a breath from your upper chest. It's going to make you tighten up. It's going to make you raise your shoulders. That immediately tenses a person, and the breathing becomes unregulated. If you freeze, if maybe you learn some easy onsets, if maybe you learn to self-disclose the fact that you stutter and desensitize yourself, that will give you more even patterns of speaking without addressing breathing. I can't tell you how many times I hear this each week and how many times I've heard it myself. Stop, take a breath, take your time, no rush. You're just increasing the person's fear. So these are very misunderstood. So I'm not saying this to make anybody feel bad. I'm just saying this to increase awareness. Don't address breathing. There are other things you can do. They can freeze. All these things should be done under the guidance of a speech-language pathologist who specializes in stuttering. So again, this is Lori Melnitsky. Thank you for following, and I hope this episode helps you.